Hello.
Good morning.
Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, it's time for another episode of Get Real with Real Estate. I think
That's
it's
right.
been a little while since we've been
Yes, we've been
on.
slacking a bit, but we've also been coaching a leadership training, so while that is no excuse, we have been exerting a lot of energy to our students, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, but we're excited to come to you guys again for another episode. This episode, we are going to be talking about sellers and their contractual obligation to you.
Yeah, so all the time we have buyers, in the transaction, they're dealing with their finances, their inspection, and they, at some point during the transaction will come to us with a panicky question of, can the seller back out of the transaction right now? And so, hey guys, thanks for watching. Hi, Lucas. And so it's something that we wanted to come to you guys with in our video today because it is something that we get asked a lot. Can a seller back out of a contract that they're obligated to?
Yeah, so when you as a buyer put your offer in, if the seller chooses to accept your offer and you open escrow and get your deposit in, at that point the seller is contractually obligated to you as the buyer. So really, as long as you are upholding everything on your end of the agreement as the buyer, the seller cannot do anything as far as backing out. So for example, like let's say there's a $500,000 house that you love and you're really excited about it. Maybe it just hit the market and you're like, this thing is going to go super fast. And you jump on it and you're like, I'll give you 500,000. Awesome. Seller accepts, opens escrow. Great. Let's say 3 days later, he gets an offer for 520,000. That seller, even though that offer is obviously, he's going to like that a lot better, 20 grand more, he can't do anything with that offer unless you give him a reason to be able to back out of the transaction.
Absolutely. And what that looks like, sorry, I'm just going to steal some time over here. I'm just going to interject. So what that looks like is if a buyer, let's say, is not abiding by their contingency periods or something they've contractually obligated themselves to, meaning that they've agreed to do something on behalf of the seller in order to uphold their side of the agreement, and only if they don't uphold their side of the agreement can the seller issue what's called a notice to perform. So we'll just walk you through a sample scenario. We're 17 days through the transaction, buyer's feeling good about things, but is hesitant to lift inspection contingencies. They're just feeling nervous. So we approach day 17, which is the typical day for lifting of inspection contingencies, and that's where the buyer has agreed to lift their contingencies. Well, day 17 goes by and they're nervous to do so. Day 18 comes around and the seller says, hey buyer, why haven't you lifted inspection contingencies? Here's a notice to perform. I need you to take action. And then that gives the buyer 48 hours to basically get their ducks in a row, get their stuff together, and get that contingency release over to the seller. So the seller still doesn't have the opportunity. You'll notice that buyer did not lift their contingencies as they were supposed to on day 17 and day 18. The seller can't just outright cancel. They can't be like, I'm done, moving on to that other buyer that I have in the background that's 20K higher. They actually have to issue the buyer what's called a notice to perform. Buyer has to acknowledge it, and then they have 48 hours, typically, unless something else has been negotiated, to get their ducks in a row.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's really so important as a buyer to just focus on getting the property under contract. All too often, a lot of buyers think like they need to have all of the answers and know every little detail about the house that they're going to buy before they put their offer in. But you're going to set yourself up for failure, especially in a market like San Diego that moves as fast as it does. Reason being is you could spend a whole week doing all your, going down to the city, asking them questions, getting home inspections, asking, roofers, plumbers. You could spend a ton of time doing all that. Nothing matters unless the seller is going to accept your offer, because you could spend all that time and money and energy doing those investigations, but at the end of the day, if the seller's not going to accept your offer, you kind of just wasted a lot of your time and energy. And then the other side to that too is once you have it under contract, you hold the power really as the buyer. Mm-hmm. The seller's obligated towards you. You have a lot more leverage. The ball's in your court, and you can kind of control the deal as the buyer once you have an accepted offer.
And you'd be surprised by how often that happens. When we have a buyer who is urgent, can pull the trigger, is rigorous in their offers, and can submit an offer, let's say within 24 to 48 hours when that property first comes on the market, the chances of them locking it up if they come in strong is pretty high. Where the buyers who are kind of like, ooh, should we make the offer? Should we make the offer? And then 3 days later they're like, yes, I should make the offer. That's typically when everybody else and their mother is coming to make their offer too. Not saying that you shouldn't make the offer at that time. I'm just saying that typically 3-4 days on market, then you're going to have a lot more competition. Maybe you're submitting your 500K offer and there's already that 520 on the table. So as a buyer, it is important to be urgent in your search, to always be aware of what's hitting the market, and then when the perfect property hits, just go for it. You can always get your deposit back if you decide that you don't like that property anymore, if something comes up on the home inspection. But ultimately then as the buyer, you have the power, which is what you would like to have in the contractual agreement.
Yeah, like Melissa said, like as a buyer, if you've got your contingencies in place, you always have the opportunity to back out, get your deposit back. The only thing you really lose at that point is just time and energy.
Yeah.
But like we said, like it's all about getting that property under contract. Once you've got it under contract, you have a lot more leverage. The ball's in your court. You can control the transaction a lot better than if you're just, sitting on the sidelines, just doing investigations and all this stuff.
Yeah, so let us know if you have any more questions about that. It's a great question. Tons of buyers ask us. And if you have any other questions that you're curious about, or the real estate industry is confusing. Real estate's very confusing. We realize now that the original agent that we used in Buffalo misled us a couple times and we didn't even realize. So ask away. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about in the next episode of Get Real with Real Estate. We would love to hear from you. Best number to reach us is 619-887-4429, and you can always check out these episodes and others on our YouTube channel, and our website, steelesandygomes.com. Hope to hear from you guys soon. Hope you're having a great day.
Bye, guys.